Prophet of Thought.
Open your mind. This is X from the Prophet of Thought series. And I happen to be on a road trip because I live in North Carolina. But over the course of the last couple of days, I've been pretty much everywhere. I've been down through Virginia. I've been down through Pennsylvania. I've been hanging out in New York City. And now I'm in upstate New York. And it's February 12th, our quote-unquote Black History Month. And throughout all the states and cities and towns that I've been through over the course of the last 3 days, one thing I noticed about us as Black people during this Black History Month is that our history hasn't, to me, it hasn't progressed. And like I said, I've traveled a few states and I've seen a few different things, and it doesn't seem like things have progressed to me. I mean, we are still more incarcerated than anyone else. I mean, we still only possess 1/2 of 1% of the wealth in this country. Our unemployment rates, even though the national unemployment rate is, say, 5 or 6%, our unemployment rate is way in double digits. It's probably 20 to 30% amongst us as Black people. I mean, we're moving backwards. I mean, we're distracted. I mean, our men walk around here with their pants down to their knees, every age from 10 to 40. Our women, they walk around here with someone else's hair glued to the top of their heads. I mean, we have not gained much of anything. Now, granted, we're not slaves. We're not on a plantation. We're not forced into involuntary servitude, if you will. But I still believe that we have the slavery plantation kind of mentality that you often hear about. And the reason why I say that is because us as a people, far as history goes, our history, which is also a part of American history, because it was America, who did this to the Black people. So it's also part of its American/Black history. And we are still substandard to everything. I mean, we are substandard in economic opportunities. We are substandard in social, economic areas. We are substandard in education. We are substandard in political power. And the list goes on and on and on. Now, granted, there's a small percentage of us, because there's like 42 million of us in the United States that are Black. But there's a small percentage of us who actually have achieved some degree of success. And those people that have achieved some success, the numbers they're so small that it doesn't really make an impact. It doesn't show well for Black people. It doesn't, I mean, you have people you can hold up like Oprah Winfrey and the Jay-Z types and Floyd Mayweathers and other athletes, actors, and, recording artists. They've made their money and they're successful and they're, living the quote unquote dream, if you will. But for the most part, Black people haven't advanced all that much. I mean, we haven't advanced. So, I mean, what is our history? What is our true history? What is it? And what will be our history 20 years from now, 40 years from now, 60 years from now? I truly believe that we as a people now if we don't make drastic changes, okay, and I mean drastic changes soon, if anything, compared to how it is now, it's probably going to get a lot worse. I mean, because we've been all but shut out, okay, of the political process. I mean, we are all but shut out of any economic opportunity. We're all but shut out when you could talk about housing and jobs and things of that nature. We're all but shut out. And it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. It doesn't seem like it's moving forward. We have more poor people amongst our people than ever before. I mean, far as educational opportunities go, I mean, the government is trying to get rid of anything that purposely helps black people, and the programs that they do have that help black people, a lot of those programs are being utilized by people who aren't even black. So if drastic changes aren't made soon, us as black people, we may not revert back to being slaves. We may not revert back to calling people master, but we will probably be worse off than we were then. And when I say worse off, I mean by the standards of how we survive as a people, how we live as a people. I mean, because institutional racism is alive and well. You know, they can shut you out of a job. They can shut you out of housing. They can shut you out of any type of opportunity. Okay. And the ironic thing is that most people who have achieved a great level of success, who are black, their success can be taken away from them at any time, because most of the people who control whatever thing it is that makes these people wealthy, if they were to take it away from them, they would no longer be wealthy. And those people who control it, they're white. They are white. Whether it be an athlete, an actor, an entertainer, whoever, the person in control more than likely is white. I mean, of course, there's a few exceptions, but for the most part, who controls the media? White people. Who controls entertainment and record companies and movie studios? White people. So it's not a stretch to think that whatever wealth that has been created, or should I say, achieved by these black people who have all this money, it could easily be taken away, because in theory, we control nothing. We control nothing. When you think about it, the people who have achieved a degree of success, their one bad speech, their one bad act, they are one bad decision away from having it all taken away from them. And then they'll be forced to live on whatever money they've saved up, okay? Because quite frankly, white people control everything. They still control everything, just like they did back in the days of slavery and Jim Crow. They control pretty much everything. And as long as white people control everything, black people will never have anything. Poor black people, more than likely, will become more poor. Middle class black people, some of them will become poor. And some rich black people will become middle class and maybe even poor as well, depending on the circumstances. But in short, we as black people, we need to gain some type of control. We need to gain some type of wealth. We need to gain some type of institutionalized setting for us, so that we can have a center, a ground zero, a headquarters where wealth springs out. And when I say ground zero headquarters, I don't mean some big gigantic building. I mean little ground zero headquarters all over this country for people to come together and build and invest and start businesses, start schools, teach people trades, teach people how to manage their money, teach people how to live, teach people how to pay bills, teach people how to buy a house, have a mortgage, all those things. These are the things that need to be taught to black people, and they need to start early. I don't think a person should be learning these things when they're 30. They may have to start learning them when they're 3, okay? When they're 4, when they're 5. I truly believe that we need to start teaching our people, because we need to rewrite the history, okay? This history needs to be rewritten. Of course, we have the people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Marcus Garvey and Stokely Carmichael and Rosa Parks and Frederick Douglass, and the list goes on and on and on and on. But to look at America now, those people would look at the way America is now and say all the efforts that they put forth to bring us along have done nothing. Because right now, like I said before, we are probably worse off now than we were then, back when those people were alive. At least back then, we had our own center of business. We had our own economic independence. We had neighborhoods and organizations that got together and fought for things politically, fought for traffic lights in our neighborhood, and fought for decent education in our schools, and fought for the right for our kids to be able to learn and thrive like everybody else. Nowadays, we don't even have those things. We don't even have those things. And there's some leaders out there who are fighting and trying to make some progress in these areas, but it's going nowhere. It's going nowhere fast, and it doesn't seem like the pace is going to pick up any time soon. So I think now's the time for us to try to rewrite history so we can look back 20, 30 years from now and say, I remember, okay, when cops killed young black men indiscriminately. That doesn't happen anymore. I remember when there weren't any black-owned businesses, but it's not like that anymore. I remember when there were no black schools, black universities, black learning centers, black vocational centers, black technical centers. It's not like that anymore. That's what we need to do. And we need to start now. Those of us who have small children, the best thing you can do for them is start teaching them life, teaching them how to live, okay? Forget the PlayStations, Xboxes, big screen TVs, and Michael Jordans. Forget all of that. They can have plenty of that when they're 30 years old and they have their own wealth. Forget about that stuff. Instead of going out, buying your kids all this nonsense, what we should be buying them is books, study guides, things to teach them about life, about money, about wealth, about saving, about investing, about finances. These are the things we need to be teaching our kids, because they're definitely not learning it in school. But school is just a small part, because you can send a kid to school every single day and he can still come home dumb as hell. But you can change that if you are actively involved in his education as well. If you are actively involved in her education as well. I don't think the learning about life should just be in school. Some of that learning about life has to be at home. Because if we're going to leave it up to the schools, that's what we've been doing all these years. And what has happened? Nothing. Nothing. So in closing, I'll say this. History has shown us that when we as black people do nothing to advance our own cause, we get nothing. Our cause is nothing. But history has also shown us that when we stick together, and we fight for what's right. And I don't just mean the marches and the speeches and all of that kind of stuff. I mean direct action, whether it be political action, social economic action, whatever. When we do stand up and we do fight for these things, we can make a change, even if the change is ever so subtle. And we need to remember that. Let's rewrite history, because the history so far has fell back, and we can change it if we want to. Prophet of Thought series. Open your mind.